The night sky changed. The last patient of the day had finally left Marcus Chen's modest clinic in rural Montana, leaving him alone with the soft hum of medical equipment and the golden rays of sunset streaming through dusty windows. At 43, he wasn't what most people expected when they walked into the only medical facility within 50 miles. A former combat medic who'd traded battlefields for wheat fields, trying to forget what he'd seen during the resource wars of 2045. Marcus moved through his end-of-day routine with practiced efficiency, sterilizing equipment and updating patient records on his ancient tablet. The isolation suited him. Out here, the only emergencies were farming accidents and the occasional flu outbreak. No more battlefield trauma, no more impossible choices about who to save first. The first sign that everything was about to change came as a low-frequency vibration that made his coffee cup dance across the metal examination table. Marcus froze, his combat instincts suddenly alert. The vibration grew stronger, and then a piercing whine cut through the evening quiet, rising to a crescendo that had him covering his ears. Through the clinic's wide front windows, he watched in disbelief as the sky turned an impossible shade of purple, swirling like oil on water. A flash of silver streaked across this alien canvas, trailing sparks and smoke. The object, clearly not any aircraft he recognized, carved a graceful arc through the atmosphere before disappearing behind the tree line of his property with a ground-shaking impact. Marcus didn't hesitate. He grabbed his emergency med kit and the rifle he kept locked in his office. Whatever had just crashed might need medical attention, but 15 years of military service had taught him to never walk into an unknown situation unprepared. The crash site was easy to find, marked by a trail of broken trees and scorched earth. What he found there made him question everything he thought he knew about the universe. The vessel was roughly the size of a small bus, its hull composed of a material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. But it was the figure half-crawled from the wreckage that stopped him in his tracks. She, and despite her alien nature, Marcus was certain the being was female, had skin that shifted colors like a cuttlefish, currently cycling between deep blues and distressed purples. Her features were surprisingly human-like, save for the delicate gill-like structures along her neck and the large, almond-shaped eyes that reflected light like a cat's. She was also clearly injured, purple blood seeping from a gash across her torso. Their eyes met, and Marcus saw something that transcended species, fear, pain, and resignation. She spoke, her voice carrying a musical quality that made his universal translator earpiece tingle. "If you're going to kill me," she said in surprisingly clear English, "please make it quick." Marcus slowly lowered his rifle, medical training overriding any fear or hesitation. "I'm a doctor," he said calmly, keeping his hands visible as he approached. "I'm here to help." The alien's color shifted to a shocked pale blue. "You want to help me?" "That's what doctors do," Marcus replied, already assessing her injuries with a professional eye. "I'm Marcus Chen. Can you tell me your name?" "Lyra," she managed, her color warming to a cautious green. "Ambassador Lyra Valthorian, and you're making a terrible mistake by helping me. They'll come looking." "Let me worry about that," Marcus interrupted, carefully applying pressure to her wound. "Right now, my job is keeping you alive. Can you walk?" Lyra attempted to stand but stumbled, her color flickering to a weak gray. Marcus caught her, surprised by how light she felt despite being nearly as tall as his 6 feet. "My clinic's not far," he said, scooping her up with practiced ease. "We need to get you stabilized before you tell me who they are." As he carried her through the darkening woods, Marcus felt her trembling against his chest. Whether from fear, pain, or cold, he couldn't tell. What he did know was that his life had just become considerably more complicated, and somehow he was okay with that. "Why?" Lara whispered against his shoulder. "Your species, you're supposed to be violent, primitive," the reports said. Marcus couldn't help but chuckle. "Sounds like your reports need updating. Now save your strength. We've got a long night ahead of us." The purple sky had faded back to normal by the time they reached his clinic, but Marcus knew nothing would ever be normal again. As he laid Lyra on his examination table, her skin shifting to match its steel surface, he realized he'd just become part of something much bigger than his quiet life in rural Montana. He'd taken an oath to help those in need, and he wasn't about to let something like interstellar politics get in the way of that. As he began treating her wounds, Marcus silently thanked whatever twist of fate had made him the first human contact for this extraordinary being who'd fallen from the stars. Colors of truth. Dawn crept through the clinic windows, finding Marcus slumped in his office chair, exhausted but vigilant. He'd spent most of the night treating Lyra's injuries, discovering that while her anatomy was surprisingly similar to human physiology in many ways, her blood had properties he'd never seen before. It seemed to actively assist in healing, forming crystalline structures around her wounds. Lyra stirred on the examination bed where he'd made her comfortable, her skin shifting from the deep blue of sleep to a more alert turquoise. "You stayed," she observed, her musical voice stronger than the night before. "Of course I stayed," Marcus replied, stretching his stiff muscles. "Someone had to monitor your condition. How's the pain?" "Manageable." Lyra's color rippled with what he was beginning to recognize as curiosity. "Your medicines are surprisingly effective. I didn't expect compatibility." Marcus pulled his chair closer, noting how her skin flickered with tiny patterns of gold, a new color he hadn't seen before. "About that," he said carefully, "I think it's time you told me what's really going on. Who's after you and why?" Lyra's color deepened to a troubled indigo. She sat up slowly, testing her strength. "My people, the Variks, have been watching Earth for decades. We're part of a galactic coalition, the Stellar Concordat. Most members believe humans were too aggressive, too unpredictable to be contacted. But some of us," she gestured to herself, patterns of hopeful green mixing with the indigo, "some of us saw potential." "And I'm guessing not everyone agreed with your assessment," Marcus prompted, remembering her surprise at his willingness to help. "No," Lyra's skin darkened to a stormy purple. "The Concordat's military faction, led by Commander Vex, believes humanity should be contained. They've been fabricating evidence, staging incidents to prove humans are dangerous. I discovered their deception, gathered proof, but," she trailed off, distress causing rapid color shifts across her skin. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "They tried to stop you. They sabotaged my ship during my mission to present evidence to the Concordat Council." Lyra's voice hardened. "I barely escaped. Earth was the last place they'd expect me to flee, and the only place Commander Vex's forces won't openly attack without revealing themselves." Marcus processed this information, his military training kicking in. "So we're dealing with a rogue faction trying to manipulate galactic politics. But why Earth? Why go to such lengths to paint us as the bad guys?" Lyra's skin shifted to a contemplative silver. "Resources, technology, position. Earth sits at a crucial junction of spatial corridors. But mostly," her colors swirled with determination, "your potential. Humans adapt faster than any species we've encountered. Given time and proper introduction to galactic society, you could change everything. Vex and his supporters prefer the current power structure. And now they're probably tracking your crash site," Marcus concluded, already mentally cataloging what they'd need to move quickly. "We can't stay here." "Marcus." Lyra's skin pulsed with a gentle rose color he hadn't seen before. "You've already risked too much. This isn't your fight." He stood, checking the supplies he packed earlier while she slept. "They made it my fight when they decided to treat my entire species like a threat. Besides," he offered a wry smile, "I've got a fully stocked mobile medical unit in the garage and enough combat experience to be useful, unless you've got a better option." Lyra's skin flickered through several colors before settling on a determined gold. "You continue to defy expectations, Marcus Chen. But you should know, if we're caught, the best outcome is death. Vex's faction can't afford witnesses." Marcus checked his rifle and medical supplies one last time. Then I guess we better not get caught. Can you walk? Lyra stood carefully, her movements growing stronger. Yes, the crystallization process is nearly complete. She paused, her skin taking on an intense azure shade. There's something else you should know. My people, we share memories through color patterns. Last night, while you treated my wounds, I saw fragments of your past. The wars, the pain you carry. I'm sorry, it wasn't intentional. Marcus froze, old memories threatening to surface. And, he asked quietly, and I understand now why the reports were wrong about humans. Her skin rippled with compassion. You've seen the worst of your kind, yet you choose to heal. That's not primitive, that's extraordinary. Before Marcus could respond, a high-pitched whine cut through the morning air, the same sound he'd heard before Lyra's crash. Her skin blanched to stark white. They're here. Marcus grabbed their supplies and Lyra's hand, heading for the garage. Then it's time to show them just how unpredictable humans can be. As they climbed into his modified medical transport, a rugged vehicle he'd equipped for backcountry emergencies, Marcus couldn't help but smile grimly. He'd spent years running from his past, hiding in this remote clinic. Now he was about to go head-to-head with alien conspirators to help prove humanity's worth to the galaxy. Life had a strange sense of humor. Ready? He asked Lyra, firing up the transport's engine. Her skin swirled with a mixture of fear and determination, settling on a brilliant copper shade he suspected meant resolve. With you? Yes. As they pulled away from the clinic, 3 sleek ships descended from the purple-tinged sky. But Marcus knew these back roads better than anyone, human or alien. Let them come. Sometimes the best way to prove humanity's worth was one person at a time. He glanced at Lyra, whose colors now pulsed with something that looked remarkably like hope. They had evidence to protect, a conspiracy to expose, and an entire species' future to defend. Just another day in the life of a country doctor. Echoes of war. The medical transport thundered down forgotten logging roads as dawn painted the Montana sky in shades of gold and pink. Marcus drove with the practiced ease of someone who knew every bump and turn, while Lyra's skin shifted between anxious yellow and alert orange as she monitored a holographic display projected from a device on her wrist. 3 pursuit vessels, she reported, her colors darkening. Military-grade stealth tech. If I hadn't modified my scanner to detect them specifically, they'd be invisible. Marcus guided the vehicle through a narrow gap between 2 ancient pines. Good thing they don't know these woods like I do. During the resource wars, I ran medical evacuations through terrain worse than this. He patted the transport's dashboard. Modified this old girl myself. She's not pretty, but she's got a few surprises. As if on cue, an energy blast sizzled past them, turning a nearby tree into smoking splinters. Lyra's skin flashed alarming patterns of red and white. They're not trying to capture us anymore. Vex must have authorized lethal force. Hang on, Marcus growled, hitting a switch on the dashboard. A cloud of metallic chaff erupted from the rear of the vehicle, scattering their pursuers' targeting systems. He'd installed the countermeasure system after treating too many veterans who'd survived similar attacks during the wars. Never thought he'd use it against alien spacecraft. Impressive, Lyra's skin rippled with appreciation. But they'll adapt quickly. We need. She cut off as Marcus took a sharp turn, sending them down what appeared to be a sheer cliff face. Instead of crashing, they entered a carefully hidden tunnel, its entrance masked by holographic technology. Welcome to Route Zero, Marcus said, navigating the underground passage with practiced ease. The wars left a network of these emergency evacuation tunnels. Most people forgot about them after the peace treaties were signed. I kept them maintained, just in case. Lyra's skin pulsed with curious patterns of blue and silver. You've been preparing for something like this. Not aliens specifically, Marcus admitted, checking their pursuit on the rearview cameras. But I learned the hard way that peace doesn't last. Better to have options and not need them. The tunnel opened into a massive underground chamber, clearly repurposed from an old military bunker. Medical supplies, food, communications equipment, and what looked like enough ammunition to supply a small army lined the reinforced walls. "We can regroup here," Marcus said, pulling the transport to a stop. "The whole facility is shielded. Unless they know exactly what they're looking for, the scanners won't pick us up." As they exited the vehicle, Lyra's skin shifted to deep purple with ribbons of gold, a combination Marcus hadn't seen before. "You continue to amaze me, Marcus Chen. My people thought humans were simply violent and unpredictable. But this," she gestured at the carefully organized supplies, "this is strategy, foresight. Comes from experience," Marcus replied, checking his medical supplies. The worst times in the resource wars weren't the battles. It was being caught unprepared, having to choose who lived or died because we didn't have enough supplies. His voice grew distant. "Never again." Lyra approached him, her skin now emanating a gentle, empathetic blue. "Let me show you something," she said softly. Before Marcus could respond, she placed her hand on his arm. Immediately, his vision filled with swirling colors that resolved into images, memories, he realized, but not his own. He saw a younger Lyra, standing before a council of beings whose skin rippled with disapproving reds and hostile browns. She was presenting evidence of humanity's potential, their art, their resilience, their capacity for both violence and extraordinary compassion. He felt her frustration as the council dismissed her findings, her horror as she discovered Vex's manipulation, her desperate flight to Earth. "Our colors don't just show emotions," Lyra explained, breaking the connection. "They carry memory, history, truth. That's why Vex fears humanity. Your species feels so deeply, adapts so quickly. If you learn to see as we do." A distant rumble interrupted her explanation. Marcus quickly checked the security feeds. "They're searching the area systematically. Won't be long before they find this place. Then we need to move quickly." Lyra's skin shifted to a determined copper as she pulled a small crystalline device from her suit. "This contains all my evidence against Vex, proof of his attempts to manipulate the Concordat. If we can transmit it to the Council, they'll track any transmission," Marcus pointed out, already loading supplies into the transport. "Yes," Lyra agreed, her colors swirling with calculation. "But there's an old Voix emergency beacon hidden in the mountains north of here. If we can reach it, its quantum entanglement system can't be traced or blocked." Marcus nodded, muscle memory from his combat days taking over as he efficiently prepared for their next move. "How far?" "About 200 kilometers, through some of the most rugged terrain on your continent." "Good," Marcus smiled grimly. "Because I know exactly where we need to go. There's an old medical outpost up there, one I helped establish during the wars. If your beacon is where I think it is, we'll have shelter and supplies waiting." Lyra's skin flickered with surprise. "You know where?" "Of course. Your people found it years ago, but didn't understand its significance. We thought it was just weird rock formation that messed with our equipment, marked it on our maps as a hazard area." Marcus checked his rifle one last time. "Ready to go prove humanity's worth to the galaxy." Lyra's skin blazed with a brilliant gold that lit up the dim bunker. "With you? I believe we might actually succeed." As they prepared to leave their temporary sanctuary, Marcus reflected on how quickly life could change. A day ago, his biggest concern was treating sprained ankles and seasonal flu. Now he was helping an alien diplomat expose a galactic conspiracy while being hunted by advanced spacecraft. But as he watched Lyra's skin shimmer with determination and trust, he realized something important. Maybe this was exactly where he needed to be, using everything he'd learned in war to finally fight for peace on a scale he'd never imagined possible. The rumbling grew closer. Time to move. Through the fire, the mountain passes grew treacherous as Marcus guided their transport higher into the wilderness. Evening shadows stretched across the snow-dusted peaks, and Lyra's skin had taken on a mesmerizing phosphorescent glow that helped illuminate their way through the growing darkness. "They're still following," she reported, her colors shifting to worried amber as she studied her scanner. "3 teams, trying to cut off our possible routes. Vex is coordinating them personally now." Marcus nodded grimly, guiding their vehicle around a particularly sharp bend. "Tell me about him. Know your enemy and all that." Lyra's skin rippled with dark, troubled patterns. "Commander Vex was once considered a hero among my people. He led our defense forces during the Spiral Wars, a conflict that nearly destroyed several civilizations. But the experience changed him. He became convinced that emerging species needed to be controlled, contained. Humanity reminds him too much of the enemy we faced back then." "And what enemy was that?" Marcus asked, carefully navigating a narrow ridge. "They were called the Nexus. Highly adaptable, incredibly resourceful, and absolutely ruthless." Lyra's colors swirled with remembered fear. "They nearly overwhelmed us with their ability to learn and evolve their tactics. Just like," she trailed off. "Just like humans," Marcus finished. "Except we're not the Nexus." "No," Lyra agreed, her skin warming to a thoughtful blue. "You're something else entirely, where they sought only to consume and expand humanity." She paused, searching for words. "You create, you heal. Even after your resource wars, you chose to rebuild rather than destroy." A sudden explosion lit up the mountainside ahead of them, sending rocks and debris cascading across their path. Marcus expertly swerved, the transport's enhanced suspension system keeping them stable as they plowed through the aftermath. "Speaking of destroying," he muttered, "your friend Vex is getting more aggressive." "He knows what's at stake," Lyra said, bracing herself as they bounced over the rough terrain. "If we reach the beacon, if the Council sees my evidence, everything he's built will crumble." Marcus was about to respond when a direct hit rocked their vehicle. Warning lights flashed across the dashboard as they began losing power. "We're going to have to abandon the transport," he announced, already looking for a defensible position. "Can't risk the supplies getting destroyed." He spotted what he needed, a narrow cave entrance, partially hidden by a snow-covered outcropping. With the last of the transport's power, he maneuvered them as close as possible. "Get the medical supplies and your evidence. We're moving on foot." They grabbed what they could carry and sprinted for the cave, just as another energy blast reduced their vehicle to smoldering wreckage. Inside the natural shelter, Marcus quickly assessed their situation. The cave was deeper than it appeared, with several branching tunnels leading further into the mountain. "Good news," he said, checking his compass and some old maps he'd brought. "These caves connect to an underground river system. Use them during the wars to move injured soldiers. Bad news, it's not going to be an easy trip." Lyra's skin had taken on a determined silver sheen. "How far to the beacon?" "If I'm right about its location, about 20 kilometers through the cave system. But," he met her luminescent eyes, "we're going to have to get wet." A series of explosions echoed from the cave entrance as Vex's forces tried to flush them out. Lyra's skin flashed with resolve. "Then we get wet. But first," she reached out, touching Marcus's temple. "Let me share something with you." Suddenly, his mind filled with colors and sensation, but this time, instead of memories, he received knowledge. Understanding of Varric's physiology, of how their color shifting worked on a cellular level. "What was that for?" he asked, blinking as his vision returned to normal. "Because what I'm about to do is going to look frightening," Lyra explained, her skin beginning to shift in ways he hadn't seen before. "My people evolved from aquatic ancestors. We retain some of their abilities." Marcus watched in amazement as Lyra's form seemed to become more streamlined, her gill-like structures expanding, her fingers developing subtle webbing. Her skin took on a deep, bioluminescent blue that lit the cave around them. "That's impressive," he managed. "It will help us move through the underwater sections faster," she said, her voice now carrying a slight resonant quality. "But the transformation takes energy. I'll need your help staying warm once we're out. More explosions rocked the cave entrance. Marcus could hear voices approaching. They were out of time. Then we better not waste any more time, he said, pulling waterproof covers over their crucial supplies. Ready for a swim. Lyra's transformed features curved into a smile that somehow managed to be both alien and warmly familiar. Ready to show Vex exactly what a human Voryx team can do. They moved deeper into the cave system, Lyra's bioluminescence lighting their way. The sound of pursuit faded behind them, replaced by the rush of underground water. As they prepared to enter the frigid river, Marcus felt a strange sense of peace. Here he was, deep underground, about to swim through mountain caves with an alien diplomat who could change her biology at will, all while being hunted by a paranoid military commander. And somehow it felt right. Like everything in his life, the wars, the healing, the years of preparation had been leading to this moment, to this chance to help prove that humanity deserved its place among the stars. Marcus, Lyra said softly, her luminescent skin painting the cave walls with dancing patterns of light. Whatever happens next, thank you for showing me that my faith in humanity wasn't misplaced. He checked their supplies one final time, then stepped into the icy water beside her. Thank me when we've exposed Vex and saved both our peoples from a needless conflict. Now, let's show the galaxy what humans and Voryx can do together. The underground river beckoned, dark and cold, but lit by Lyra's otherworldly glow. They had a long way to go, but Marcus knew that every stroke would take them closer to changing the course of human history, and maybe, just maybe, proving that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its capacity for violence, but its ability to forge unexpected bonds in the darkest of places. Deep currents. The underground river was a maze of darkness and echoes, broken only by the ethereal glow of Lyra's bioluminescent form. Marcus fought against the numbing cold, grateful for his military survival training as they navigated the subterranean waterways. Lyra moved through the water with fluid grace, helping guide him around hidden obstacles and through the swiftest currents. After what felt like hours, they emerged into a vast underground chamber where the river pooled into a deep, still lake. Ancient mining equipment, long abandoned, lined the rocky shore. Marcus pulled himself onto the stone edge, his muscles trembling from cold and exertion. Lyra followed, her transformed body gradually shifting back to its normal state. "You're freezing," she observed, her skin pulsing with concerned purple hues. Without hesitation, she pressed her hands against his chest. Immediately, warmth began spreading through his body, a biological heat transfer he didn't fully understand, but desperately appreciated. "That's handy," he managed through chattering teeth. "Any other abilities I should know about?" Lyra's skin flickered with what he now recognized as amusement. "Many, but healing and temperature regulation are among the most useful right now." Her colors suddenly shifted to alert copper. "They're still following. Different approach, they're using the old mining tunnels that parallel the river." Marcus pulled out their supplies, checking that everything had stayed dry. How much farther to the beacon? Less than 5 kilometers now. But Lyra's skin darkened with concern. "Vex will have realized where we're headed. He'll be waiting." "Good." Marcus checked his rifle, making sure the waterproof seals had held. "Because I have a plan. But first, there's something I need to know." He met her luminescent gaze. "That evidence you're carrying, show me. All of it." Lyra's skin rippled with surprise. "Are you sure? The full data transfer can be overwhelming for non-Voryx minds." "I need to understand exactly what we're fighting for," Marcus insisted. "No more partial truths." After a moment's hesitation, Lyra nodded. She placed both hands on his temples, and suddenly Marcus's world exploded into a kaleidoscope of color and memory. He saw Vex's careful manipulation of events, staged attacks blamed on humans, doctored evidence of Earth's aggression, secret meetings with arms dealers preparing for a containment war. But deeper than that, He saw the truth about humanity's unique position in the galaxy. Earth sat at a crossroads of space-time corridors that could revolutionize interstellar travel. Human genetic adaptability could help solve problems that had plagued alien species for millennia. Human creativity and resilience could bridge gaps between fractured civilizations. When the vision ended, Marcus had to steady himself against the cave wall. "He's not just trying to contain us," he said hoarsely. "He's trying to prevent us from changing the entire balance of power in the galaxy." Yes. Lyra's skin swirled with determined patterns. Humanity's potential terrifies those who profit from the current order. Vex truly believes he's protecting galactic stability. He doesn't understand that stagnation is its own form of death. Marcus pulled out his maps, spreading them on a relatively dry section of rock. "Then let's change his mind. These mining tunnels all connect to a central hub near where your beacon should be. During the resource wars, we used this system too." He broke off as a distant explosion echoed through the caves. "They're getting closer," Lyra observed, her skin flickering with tension. "Good," Marcus said again, a plan crystallizing in his mind. "Because we're going to use these tunnels exactly like we did in the wars. Only this time, instead of evacuating wounded soldiers, we're going to give Commander Vex a lesson in human ingenuity." He quickly outlined his plan, watching Lyra's skin shift through various colors as she processed each element. When he finished, she was glowing with a bright, determined gold he'd never seen before. "It's dangerous," she said. "If anything goes wrong, then we fail, and humanity gets labeled as a threat to galactic peace," Marcus finished. "But if it works, we prove exactly why humanity deserves a chance." He started preparing their remaining supplies. "Besides, you've shown me your memories. Time I showed you some of mine." Using the old mining equipment and their limited supplies, they began setting their trap. Marcus worked with the efficiency of someone who'd done this before, though never with such high stakes. As they worked, he shared stories of the resource wars, not just the battles, but the moments of humanity that had stayed with him. "We weren't fighting for resources, not really," he explained as they rigged the final elements of their plan. "We were fighting for a future where we'd stop repeating our mistakes, where we'd learn to share, to cooperate, to see beyond our differences." Lyra's skin pulsed with understanding, like the future the Concordat could have if they'd only embraced change instead of fearing it. "Exactly." Marcus checked their handiwork one final time. "Ready?" Before Lyra could respond, harsh lights flooded the chamber. Armed figures in sleek combat suits emerged from multiple tunnels, weapons trained on them. And from the central passage stepped a tall figure whose skin rippled with commanding reds and blacks, Commander Vex himself. "Ambassador Lyra," Vex's voice carried both authority and disappointment. "Did you really think you could turn one primitive human against the entire might of the Concordat?" Lyra's skin blazed with defiant colors, but Marcus stepped forward before she could respond. "Actually, Commander," he said calmly, "she's not turning anyone against the Concordat. She's trying to save it." He spread his arms, indicating the chamber around them. "Just like this whole setup isn't about fighting you, it's about showing you something." Vex's skin flickered with confused patterns. "Showing me what?" Marcus smiled grimly. "What humanity does best, adapting." He pressed a hidden switch, and the chamber erupted into carefully orchestrated chaos. The trap was sprung. Now they would see if humanity's reputation for unpredictability could turn from a liability into their greatest asset. The human element. The mining chamber exploded into controlled pandemonium. Marcus's trap wasn't designed to kill or even seriously injure, it was engineered to demonstrate. The old mining equipment, rigged with precision, created a spectacular display of human resourcefulness and Varric's technology working in harmony. Electromagnets salvaged from mining drills activated, pulling weapons from surprised alien hands. Lyra's bioluminescence, amplified through carefully positioned crystals, created disorienting patterns that mimicked Varric's emotional signals, throwing Vex's soldiers into confusion. Water from the underground river, redirected through ancient channels, sprayed in calculated patterns, creating a three-dimensional screen on which Lara's evidence began projecting. Vex stood in the center of the chaos, his skin cycling through shocked patterns of white and gray as images of his conspiracy played out around him in the water droplets. His own words, his secret meetings, his manipulated evidence, all displayed in a way that couldn't be denied or dismissed. "Stop this," Vex commanded, but his authority was undermined by the tremor in his voice. "This proves nothing except humanity's talent for destruction." Marcus stepped forward, deliberately keeping his hands visible. "Look again, Commander. We could have filled these tunnels with explosives, could have turned your own weapons against you. Instead, we created this, a demonstration of cooperation between human ingenuity and Varric's technology." "A primitive light show changes nothing," Vex snarled, his skin darkening to threatening crimsons. "The Nexus began with clever tricks too, before they nearly destroyed us all." "Then look deeper," Lara interjected, moving to stand beside Marcus. Her skin began projecting memories, not just of human violence, but of human healing. She showed Vex the moments she'd witnessed through Marcus. Soldiers risking their lives to save former enemies, communities rebuilding together after the resource wars, the countless small acts of kindness she'd observed since arriving on Earth. "The Nexus sought only to consume," she continued, her colors pulsing with passionate intensity. "Humans create, they adapt, they learn. Yes, they can be violent, but they choose, again and again, to move beyond violence, to heal, to grow." Marcus watched understanding begin to flicker across the faces of Vex's soldiers as Lyra's memories played out around them. "Your own records prove it, Commander. After our resource wars, we didn't fragment or collapse. We came together, built something stronger, different. That's what terrifies you, isn't it?" Lyra pressed, her skin shifting to penetrating blues. "Not that humans will destroy the Concordat, but that they'll change it, make it grow into something new, something better." Vex's composure cracked, his skin betraying flashes of fear beneath the anger. "The Concordat maintains peace through order, through control. Change brings chaos, destruction." "Change brings life," Marcus interrupted firmly. "You're a soldier, Commander. You know the difference between destroying an enemy and adapting to overcome a challenge. Right now, the galaxy faces challenges that need human adaptability. Laura showed me the problems your people are struggling with: genetic degradation, cultural stagnation, technological plateaus. We could help solve those problems together." "And if you're wrong?" Vex demanded, but his colors were shifting, uncertainty creeping in. "If humanity's influence destroys everything we've built, then you'll adapt too," Marcus said simply. "That's what living things do. They change or they die. But I don't think that's going to happen. Want to know why?" He gestured around the chamber, where human and alien technology worked in concert to create something neither civilization could have achieved alone. "Because this is what humanity does best. We don't just adapt. We help others adapt too. We take pieces of different ideas, different cultures, and build something new, something better." Laura's skin began to glow with a new color, a deep, resonant gold that seemed to fill the chamber with hope. "The choice was never between chaos and control, Commander. It was between growth and stagnation, between fear and possibility." One by one, Vex's soldiers lowered their recovered weapons. Their skin colors shifted to thoughtful hues as they watched the evidence continue to play out around them. The proof was undeniable, but more than that, the demonstration itself proved Lyra's point about humanity's potential. Vex stood silent for a long moment, his skin cycling through complex patterns of emotion. Finally, he spoke, his voice heavy with resignation. "You realize there's no going back from this. Once humanity joins the Concordat, everything will change." "Everything already has," Marcus replied. "The question is whether you'll help guide that change or try to fight it." The commander's colors settled into a deep, contemplative blue. "The Council will need to see all of this. Not just the evidence of my actions, but this demonstration, this proof of human potential. That's why we're here, Lyra said, gesturing toward a passage that led to her beacon. To share the truth, all of it. Will you stand in our way? Vex looked around the chamber one final time, taking in the harmony of human and Varrics technology, the faces of his soldiers as they processed everything they'd witnessed. His skin shifted to a color Marcus hadn't seen before, a subtle mixture of acceptance and hope. No, he said finally, I will not. Perhaps it's time for me to adapt as well. As they prepared to make their final journey to the beacon, Marcus felt Lyra's hand slip into his. Her skin pulsed with warm colors that conveyed more than words ever could. Together, they had done more than expose a conspiracy or prevent a conflict. They had demonstrated the very thing that made humanity unique, the ability to turn potential enemies into allies, to forge understanding from confrontation, to build bridges across the stars themselves. The galaxy was about to change, and humanity would help guide that change, one connection at a time. New dawn. 6 months later, Marcus stood at the window of the newly established Concordite embassy in Montana, watching as ships from a dozen alien civilizations moved gracefully through Earth's atmosphere. The sight still amazed him, even after everything that had happened. Below, his old clinic had been transformed into a pioneering medical research center, where human doctors worked alongside alien healers to combine their knowledge and techniques. Still watching the skies, Lyra's musical voice came from behind him. Her skin shimmered with affectionate gold as she joined him at the window. Hard not to, he replied, smiling as she slipped her hand into his. Sometimes I still can't believe how much has changed since you crashed into my life. Speaking of change, Lyra's skin flickered with excited patterns. The council approved our proposal. The Human Varrics Medical Exchange Program will begin next month. 20 human doctors will travel to various Concordate worlds, while we send our healers here to learn your methods. Marcus turned to face her, still amazed by how her colors shifted and swirled with emotion. After months of close contact, he'd begun to develop what the scientists were calling chromatic empathy, the ability to intuitively understand Varrics' color language. It was just one of many unexpected developments as humans and aliens learned from each other. And Vex, he asked, though he already knew the answer from the satisfied copper tones in Lyra's skin. Adapting better than anyone expected, she replied. His experience makes him uniquely qualified to help manage the integration process. He understands both the risks and the potential. Her colors deepened to thoughtful blue. He told me yesterday that watching humans work has taught him more about true strength than centuries of military service. Marcus nodded, remembering the commander's transformation from opponent to ally. Fear of change is universal, I suppose. The trick is learning to embrace it. Something humans seem particularly skilled at, Lyra observed, her skin sparkling with admiration. The Concordate's xenobiologists are still trying to understand how your species adapts so quickly. 3 of our worlds have already adopted human medical techniques, and your art. She gestured to where a massive collaboration piece hung in the embassy's atrium, combining human painting with Varrics' color-shifting technology. We had good teachers, Marcus said, squeezing her hand. Speaking of which, how are the first human candidates doing with the color-sharing training? Lyra's skin rippled with excitement. Better than we imagined possible. It seems humans have a natural capacity for empathic connection. It just needed the right catalyst to develop. The Council believes that within a generation, many humans will be able to communicate through colors just as well as any Varrics. Movement in the sky caught their attention, a sleek diplomatic vessel descending toward the embassy's landing pad. That'll be the Medical Council representatives, Marcus noted, straightening his uniform. As Earth's first official liaison to Concordate Medical Services, he had responsibilities he never could have imagined in his days as a rural doctor. Ready to help shape the future of intergalactic medicine? Lyra asked, her skin glowing with warm confidence. Marcus thought about the journey that had brought them here. From a chance encounter in his workshop to a desperate chase through mountain caves, From exposing a conspiracy to building bridges between worlds, each step had seemed impossible until it was accomplished, each barrier insurmountable until it was overcome. "You know what I've learned?" he said as they walked together toward the landing pad. "The galaxy wasn't waiting for humanity to prove we weren't dangerous. It was waiting for us to prove we were necessary. That our way of thinking, our ability to adapt and change, and bring others along with us, that's what makes us valuable." Lyra's skin pulsed with deep understanding. "And now we show them what humanity does best. We learn, we grow, and we help others do the same." He paused at the embassy doors, watching as the alien ship touched down. "One connection at a time, we build something new, something better." Together, Lyra agreed, her colors blazing with hope and possibility. As they stepped out to greet the alien delegation, Marcus reflected on how far they'd come and how far they still had to go. The galaxy was vast, full of challenges and opportunities they couldn't yet imagine. But that was fine. After all, adapting to the impossible was what humans did best. And now they wouldn't have to do it alone. The rising sun painted the Montana sky in brilliant colors, mixing with the shimmering hues of alien vessels and the glowing patterns of Varric's skin. It was a new dawn, not just for humanity, but for all species who were ready to embrace change and growth together. In the end, Marcus realized that was the greatest lesson of all, that the future belonged not to those who feared change or tried to control it, but to those who dared to imagine something better and work together to make it real. The stars above seemed to shine a little brighter, as if acknowledging the infinite possibilities that lay ahead.